Welcome to On Point with Ron Gailey, where we meet with city leaders to discuss pressing issues, best practices, and ways that citizens and leaders come together to build their communities. City and municipal leaders have some of the toughest jobs in America. They are bombarded by expectations and conflicting demands. This podcast explores how successful leaders navigate that complexity. And now, your host, CEO and founder of On Point Insights, Ron Gailey.
Good morning, Ryan. How you doing today?
I'm doing good. How are you, Ron?
Good. Beautiful green trees in Ohio behind you.
Yes, sir.
We're joined by Colby Collins on the video. Thank you for joining us, Colby.
Thank you guys for the invite.
Yeah. So Colby joins us from Midlothian, Texas, where he's an assistant planning director there. Prior to that, he was a planner in Waxahachie. Is that how it's pronounced?
You got it.
Waxahachie, Texas. And also in Grand Prairie, Texas, he was the city planner there.
Correct.
And before that, he got his master's degree at the University of Texas at Arlington. So thank you for taking the time to join us.
Thank you, guys.
Today, we're going to be talking about core values in cities. And it's important for cities to have core values. And today we're going to speak with Colby about core values. I spoke with him a couple of weeks ago, and we had a delightful conversation about core values. And I thought, this is really a wonderful topic that we could talk about. And he had a take on it that I thought was different than others I had seen, not only of their importance, but like what you do when your city maybe isn't doing everything you think could be done. And I thought it was a wonderful take when I caught up with him. Colby is in the trenches. Usually we speak with city managers or assistant city managers, but he's close to the people, right? And I think his perspective of being an employee in the middle of the city and, having people above him and below him and everything, it's a great take on things. So thank you for joining us. As we begin, I'd like to just start the conversation. As we begin, I'd like to understand a little bit about what it means to be a planner. Tell us, most people probably know the role of a city planner, and but tell us more about what this is.
A lot of people just see things come up, but they have no idea how certain things came about. And so what exactly does a city planner do? There's so many ins and outs that comes with that. However, I can generalize it by saying that we essentially help oversee development for whatever city that we're in. And so that comes with a lot of communication. Yes, city planning, I view it as a larger umbrella because we also have to communicate with our building inspections department. We have to communicate with economic development. We have to communicate with our parks department to make sure that this one project, whatever that may be, helps benefit the city through all of these different connections.
Like you keep the communications open between departments as you move forward with your development and growth of your city. Is that what it is?
Right. So the reason why I say that so many departments come into play with this is because that as a planner, I may be okay with certain things. Okay, we're looking to make sure that the building has a certain aesthetic. It meets certain building material requirements. The building is set back from the property line a certain distance. However, however, our building inspections department also want to make sure that the plans are aligned as approved by our Planning and Zoning Commission and City Council. Our economic development department also wants to make sure that this is going to be compatible with surrounding uses throughout the city, which is also something we work in conjunction with economic development on doing as a planner. Also, Parks Department, if a certain development is looking to dedicate a certain amount of acreage, we got to look to see, okay, are we going to be able to maintain this as a Parks Department? Where does planning come in to make sure that the right amount of acreage is dedicated? So that's what I mean when I say communicate internally through different departments as well before we make that external communication.
Fascinating.
Yeah.
Fascinating. Well, it's really, I'm really glad you're here. My city where I live, we don't have a city planning department. Like we don't have that. Right. I'm on the planning commission, it's like a volunteer group, but we don't have but when you get larger, like the city of Midlothian, remind us of the population of Midlothian.
So we are right about 40,000 population right now.
Yeah. Yeah. So when you have a substantial city, you need to have that to
Correct.
keep everything from, but because you make plans as a city, and then you guys need to make sure that like those plans are kept in the forefront, and that things don't happen that ignore the plans that have been made, right?
Correct.
Could you tell us a little bit more about the greatest challenges to planning in a city?
I will say that there's no one greatest challenge per se because there are so many different cities that have so many different challenges. However, one constant challenge that I've witnessed through different cities that I've worked in is that there is usually a growth that's happening through each of these cities and where the city doesn't look like it did 10, 20 years ago. And so every city has what I like to call the originals, quote unquote, where there have been people who have lived there through different generations for numerous years, and they're used to their city looking a certain way, and they don't want it to change. They, no matter if we get to 2045, they still want that city to look like it did whenever they moved in. And
Right.
then you also have the people who have moved in, the incoming residents or the newer residents, and they're all about growth. They're all about, hey, I would like to see more commercial. I would like to see things for my kids. I would like to have my kid have areas for my kids to come back and move. And so as a planner, one of the biggest challenges that I've found is that we're trying to find that balance, and depending on what city that they live in. But a constant challenge as a planner that I've noticed is that there are always people who want to keep things the way they are versus provide new development.
Definitely. Yeah, we see that
Yeah.
often in our research with this dichotomy: people who've been there a long time, not excited about growth, like you said. Do you ever
Yeah.
use survey data with residents to try and get a feel for how a project might go over or which direction you should take it?
Oh yeah, of course. And so also we send out what we call PONs, property owner notifications. And so anybody within 200 to 300 feet of that subject property is going to get notified. Legally, we're required to send out those notifications. However, through that, we also provide our contact information in which people could contact us to ask us questions about that project or any project really throughout the city. And so that's something that we try to help uh, gain a lot of feedback on before we take it to our planning and zoning commission and city council, because on any controversial topic per se or case, one of the first questions is going to be, what was the feedback? Did we get any letters of opposition? Did we get any letters of support? Or, those are some of the most common questions with that. So
Sure.
surveying people or just sending out notices to get feedback is always going to be a priority that we do.
Right on.
Yeah.
Love it. Well, hey, we discussed core values, you and I,
Yeah.
and you had plenty to say about it. What have you observed when it comes to core values for cities?
Yeah, we did. If myself, Colby, Ron, Ryan, we all get a group together and say, hey, this is how we're going to move going forward. It makes a lot of decisions easier, whether we're interviewing someone because we're looking at, hey, does this person align with our core values? Any development projects that come through, does this align with our core values and the mission on how we want to move forward with the city? So to answer your question, it just provides a great sense of direction on how we want to move forward.
Now, you've worked for cities that have had strong values in place, and tell me, how did that impact things for the city? Why do you think, because you're an advocate for core values.
Right.
Tell me about the
Right.
cities that have had strong values.
So for the places that I've been fortunate enough to work in that had a sense of core values, I think that it not only allows one to get a sense of direction, but it also allows one to feel valued as a person, not just as an employee.
You've also worked in cities that didn't really emphasize core values much, and help me understand your observations about that.
Yeah. So unfortunately, it was the opposite of what I just said. There was a lack of direction. There was a lack of people who felt valued, and oftentimes, I've noticed that there may be employees who go through this circle of emotions that if they don't feel valued and they don't feel like they're able to voice their concerns, or if they are able to voice it, but they don't feel like their concerns are being heard, they're going to go through a cycle of frustration and then resentment, and then ultimately end on the thought of, hey, I could go somewhere else and just find a better job that suits me, or I can deal with less stress or less pressure, or where I feel somewhere where I feel more valued. And so, unfortunately, that's the topic that cities run into where it comes to employee retention. Hey, how do we keep employees? But sometimes we make it rocket science when it's, hey, are we truly investing in our employees? Are we caring about our employees? What not only what it means to them to be a professional, but what it means to them to be an actual person as well.
So, when you were at the city you were at that didn't emphasize core values very much, what did you do?
So I always try to wait to see what exactly the environment is. Of course, you don't want to be the person that goes in and just starts changing everything because people going to look around like, "What the hell is this guy?" But
Yeah, no
no,
kidding.
kind of after I worked there for a little while, I took it upon myself. Hey, I'm not in a position where I can say, "Hey, the whole city is going to have core values." I can't control that. However, I can control the department that I'm in. And so I thought it was something that was important to me. And so sat down with my team and said, hey, guys, I think that we have a great team of people. However, we don't have any real, our guidance and direction isn't actually written down. So we sat down, came up with some core values as a team, and we created our goals and missions for this year based off of those core values. And that has helped us guide our direction and helped each one of us as professionals and as people in general move forward.
So it's just kind of like, okay, I can't control everything around me, but I can control my space.
Yeah.
And my team, our team, we can create something that works for us. And what are some examples of some of the core values you've chosen?
Great question. So the four that we landed on was so it spells out easy. That's not the easy with an I should say, but it was excellence, accountability, service, and inclusion. Excellence. That's just something that I suggested personally because I think that no matter what we do, we should do it at the standard of excellence. We're not going to. That doesn't mean we know every single answer or know every single detail of something, but how we communicate with people is going to be at the standard of excellence. How we present cases is going to be at the standard of excellence. How we prepare is going to be at the standard of excellence. And again, we're not always going to know everything, but we take that and we learn from it, which leads us to accountability. There are going to be times in which, again, we don't know every single thing. However, we will be accountable and acknowledge, hey, we should have known that. However, here's how we're going to handle the next situation going forward. Service and excellence kind of go hand in hand because we just want to be known for providing great service. Again, if I were to ask you to name, like, hey, if you could think of the greatest chicken in the world, you probably wouldn't say Chick-fil-A. However, when it comes to service, a lot of people think of Chick-fil-A as great service. Their
Right.
lines, their restaurants are always packed. And so it's due to the service. It's my pleasure. How can I help you? You got everything. And it's just always, you never have to worry about anything. And so we just want it to be that kind of standard. We want it to be known.
I think well, you said they were kind of the same. I think excellence is like the quality, and service is the how it's delivered.
Yeah.
You know what I
Yeah.
mean? There's a little bit like excellence is like a deliverable all of its own, but service is like the way you deliver.
Right. Right.
You know.
No, that I would 100% agree with you on that one. And again, we just wanted to, whether we were dealing with applicants, whether we were dealing with developers, whether we're dealing with each other within our department, whether we're dealing with internal staff, whether we're dealing with anyone from a board and commission or just any resident in general, I want them to think back like, man, that was some of the greatest service I've ever received. Even if they didn't know the answer, they took their time out trying to work with me to figure out whatever that answer may be. Lastly, I'll kind of wrap it up quickly. Inclusion. We want to be sure that everyone has uh, anyone who has different thoughts and ideas that is inclusive. Just because it isn't the status quo doesn't mean it's not a good idea. We actually have someone who is one of our zoning inspectors. It's a new position. However, he's never worked in local government before. He's never worked in a zoning inspector position before. he actually has previous experience working with a funeral home, which is completely two different sides of the spectrum. If you obviously, as you can see, however, one of the things that we were looking for was that someone who could deal with people. I'm not expecting anyone to come in and know every single thing about being a zoning inspector, but all of the core values, all of our mission and goals, we were looking for someone who aligned with that and just willing to work with people. Obviously, working in the funeral industry, you got to have some sense of working with people and how to navigate certain situations. And so being sometimes his ideas that he provides isn't always coming from a local government perspective, if you will. However, it gives us different thoughts of how we can handle a different situation because the way he's thinking isn't a way that we maybe have thought of before. And so just being overall inclusive of all ideas, no matter what title you have, no matter what position you have.
I really like that definition of inclusion because I just did a survey for another city,
Uh-huh.
an employee survey. And this city, like the number one things employees wanted was leaders who listen,
Mm-hmm.
and so that's a lot of what you're talking about. This is sort of like, and leaders that hear what I have to say,
Mm-hmm.
they wanted to have that. And like those were really important to them. And you're speaking about those very things as being what makes a difference in a city. And I think it is true. And this city, by and large, was rated pretty high,
Uh-huh.
but they wanted even more of that, right?
Yeah.
It's not like they were rated poorly and they need to be better, but also those employees who were least motivated, like that was their number one.
Right.
Like,
Right.
that was, and among the motivated, it was also their number one. And they thought the city was doing well, but among the least motivated, like it was their number one. And they also needed like more tools and other things. But it was fascinating to hear you talk about that because I'm going, yeah, this is just like the same
Yeah.
as another city that I'm, working with right now.
Again, sometimes I think that we may make things rocket science when in reality is as just what you stated. Are we taking time to actually talk and listen to people? You learn more about a person. I've asked people, "Hey, what's your professional goals, and how do you want to see you grow as yourself grow as a professional? How do you want to see our department grow? Also, what's your personal goals? Because believe it or not, none of us really dreamed about doing what we're doing right now in local government. Half of us didn't even know what it was until we actually got into it. However, now that we're here, there are people who are okay with just being in the position that they are, but there are also people who want to continue to grow and move forward. But we also have to take the time to invest in them because we ultimately want to create a culture in which everyone is treated so great that no one even wants to leave. And so
I
I
love
think
it.
that's the big thing that we're looking at.
How has your team responded?
I think great, man. I think I see it through action, not only action through our own department internally, but when you see it shown through other departments and how we communicate and how we serve others, that's when I know some effect is happening. And so, energy is contagious. And so the energy that you bring into the workplace, that you bring to others, always checking in and serving, hey, how can I help you? Tell me what you got going on. Is there any way I can make your day easier? Eventually that contagion will go on to others and they will ask other
I
departments, hey,
love
how
it.
can I help you? And you know I think communication is a big aspect when it comes to that.
I love it.
Yeah.
All right. So I have one final tough question for
Uh-huh.
you. So you've done this and your staff love it. What about your boss or your boss's boss? Any sense like how they're feeling about what you're doing?
I think it's great. It's there are people who are accepting of that. What Ron may be good at, Ryan may not be great at. What Ryan may be good at, Kobe may not be good at. And however, if there's someone who's better working on the actual technical things when it comes to city planning, they're willing to let that person work on that. If it's like, hey, this is where Kobe strives and helping be a people person, they're willing to let me work and do those things as well. So I think that's where what I'm appreciative of because someone can very well could have came in and be like, yeah, I hear all of that, but hey, cut that. That's not how we moving because I don't agree with that.
So they're just giving you the freedom to do
Right.
it. They're happy that you're doing it. It's working out
Correct.
well.
Correct. And
That's great.
I think that takes a lot of self awareness because and
Yeah.
then you have to remove your ego as well because if you're coming in and you're thinking that, hey, I'm because I have this title, I should be making all the decisions and this person shouldn't, then, you're going to slow down your growth and you're going to limit the people under you as well. So taking away that ego and being self-aware to say, hey, I may want to do this, but this person is a star at doing this. And this is where I want
That's
to let this
great.
person shine. I don't want to dim this person's light on doing this. And so I think those are the two things you got to think about: being self-aware and removing your ego. And that's when you'll really get to flourish individually and as a team.
Well, Colby, what a delight. Thank you for taking the time to visit with us.
Yeah.
We'll get this up as soon as we can. Ryan, any further questions you have?
No, it's been great. Thank you so much for your time, Colby. Really appreciate chatting with you.
Yeah. Thank you, guys. If I can, I do want to say, a few final comments. Obviously, I want to thank you guys for taking the time out to interview me. Ryan, this has been great. I appreciate you guys. I do want to leave people, whoever choose to listen to this, with a few comments. Just comment number one: always treat everyone with respect and with a positive attitude, because in our professions, we usually are around each other at work more than we are with our own families, unfortunately. And, with that, it's always good to bring a positive attitude into the workplace to help, again, talking about that energy being contagious. It just spreads around. And so it helps people feel good. You never know what people are going through at home. Also, as you continue to work throughout your career and climb the career ladder, often we could get far away where we forget what it was like to be that entry level or intern person. And so, never forget to pay it forward. And lastly, just network, because, you may meet amazing guys like yourselves, or ultimately, you never know what those doors may open in the future. And so I didn't want to get off without saying those few things, but
I love it.
Guys, for sure.
I love it, Colby. One final thing I'm going to add to your thing,
Yeah.
and that is, I noticed in the city survey that we just did for employees, part-timers were the ones who had the lowest ratings.
Interesting.
Is that interesting? So they I think sometimes, you need to think all the way, at all levels, and treat everybody as just think about how you can help them.
Yeah.
I just love that.
That's amazing.
I love that, what you added. Well, hey, I think this concludes it. Let's wrap it up, Ryan.
Great.
Thanks
so much.
All right. Appreciate you guys.
Thanks for listening. If you found this discussion valuable, please consider subscribing and sharing with others. If you have a topic or question you'd like to hear us discuss in our next episode, leave a comment or send us an email. It's podcast@onpoint-insights.com. See you next time.